So in this video, we're going to have a look at the header located up here. So the header is going to provide access to the global preset browser, the global chord settings, and also the options menu. So first of all, we know that we have the ability to randomize the preset because we already looked at that. So it's going to load a random preset from the selected category in the global presets browser. Now by default, we have the all category selected, but we could choose from one of these subcategories as well. So let's say we wanted to use the instruments preset category. Now we can choose a random preset from within here. As you can see, so we want to do synths. It's now going to jump to choose a random synth preset. Let's try voices. Pretty cool, very inspiring sounds. So the next option we have is the global preset selector. Now we can first of all use these little arrows here to move through left and right through the list. And each one of these global presets includes a chord, sample and effect set, as well as a mapping of all performance controls for immediate playing. So we don't need to go in and map any things ourselves, what we may want to, but you can actually just kind of from the get-go start messing around with each preset, which is very useful. Now we'll come back and have a look at the preset browser in a little bit more detail later. Now next up we have the global chord settings. Now what we can do from here is choose the key of the track, whether it's major or minor, the octave we're working in, and we can also lock this if we want to keep the same settings when changing presets. Now if we click on the musical note here, we can transpose it that way. And as I said, we can choose whether it's going to be minor or major, and you can see that it will suddenly jump to the relative major when we change it to major. Let's put it back to minor, see it's back to F minor. Choose the octave we're working in, and as I said, we can lock this, so as we change presets, and we load a preset up, the key we're working is not going to change, so it's going to stay on F minor in this case. And then finally here for the header, we have this options menu here. Now we have various different options located in here. So the options menu provides options and settings that are related to MIDI control back and sample playback. So first of all, we can switch between mono and poly versions. Now what this means is in mono mode, the plugin can only play one chord at any given time, even if you press multiple keys. Whereas in poly mode, chords are going to be played back for every key that you're pressing. So let's try that out. So we'll go to mono mode. So now I can only play one chord at a time, which is generally going to be quite useful for chords. Let's put it into poly mode. Can you hear that was getting a lot messier because basically it was stacking the chords up on top of each other. Now the next option we have is the play mode. Now this is going to move the position of samples based on their root note. And there's 3 notes available: root order, which is the default, random and original. So in root order, samples with the lowest root note are assigned to the note with the lowest pitch in the chord, which is going to preserve the voicing and harmonic structure. So that would basically reflect the instrument's place in the register essentially. So if it was a bass sound, where the samples were going to be extending down into the low frequencies, they are going to be more likely to be playing the lower notes in a chord than, say, a sparkly bell sound, which is going to be playing in the upper register. You wouldn't necessarily want that playing the bass notes, whereas you would want that to be on the top playing a melody potentially. So it's going to basically respect the position of the sample within the register, the type of instrument it is. Now random is going to assign samples randomly to notes of the chord, which could come up with some happy accidents. Let's compare it in this case here. So a little bit more consistent sounding when we're in root order and a bit nicer spread throughout the frequency range. And then we have finally original. Now in this case, the samples are assigned as they were originally programmed, and that doesn't take into consideration the root note of the sample. And this can mean when you're randomizing samples, the chords will sound a little bit less musical. But again, you could come up with some happy accidents that way. And then finally, we have mapping here as well. Now this is going to switch between different mappings for the MIDI control octave that play the chords. Now, the default was chromatic. So in chromatic mode, we're going to be playing, as we've already seen, C3 to C4, all the white notes, which can be suitable for playing that octave on a MIDI keyboard. But we can shift that up an octave or down an octave, should you wish. And then we have a pad mode, which is going to map the 8 chords to whole and semitones from C3 to G3. So this is better if you're using a MIDI pad controller. And again, we have the ability to shift that up an octave or down an octave. So for most applications, if you're using a MIDI keyboard, you can leave that on the default, but should you wish to change that, you can do it. And if you're using a pad controller, then you can switch that to be kind of better designed for the pads. Okay, and that is the header here. Remember where you have the little cross here, we want to leave any of our windows that's located on the header as well. So to recap, we can randomize presets from here. We can also access the preset browser, which we're going to come back to and have a look at in a little bit more detail. We can change presets by using these arrows as well here. We can then change the root note, major or minor key, the octave we're playing in, and we can lock this so it doesn't change when we're changing presets. Because if you're working, trying to kind of add sounds to a track, then you're probably not going to want to change the key because you're going to know the key already. And then we have this little options menu here that allows you to change from mono to poly, so you can play single chords or one chord at a time or multiple chords. Play mode is going to respect the root note of the sample, so it's going to traditionally have instruments that are going to be low in the register playing the lower parts of the chord and vice versa. And we have some different options for that. Root order, as I said, is going to respect the root. Random is just going to randomize the sample, and original is going to play back the sounds as they were originally programmed. And then we can change the mapping as well. So chromatic is the default. That's going to be just C3, C4 on a MIDI keyboard. Chromatic +1, shift that up an octave. Chromatic -1, shift it down. And pad is going to be the white and black keys, C3 to G3. You can shift that up an octave, down an octave, or play it back in that position. Okay, so that is the header. Let's just come out of here. Now, as I said, we are going to come back to the global presets browser when we have a look at browsers in a little bit more detail. And in the next video, we're going to check out the main page. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.